Excess insulin, not checked on basic lab work. It stimulates aging, breast and prostate cancers, PCOS. Dr. Ben Bikman on the Dr. Kinberry live stream.
Many doctors, even if you're overweight, even if you're pre-diabetic, you go to your doctor for your annual checkup and they'll check a very basic panel of lab work. Your glucose is normal. And so at that point, your doctor stops looking. But the problem is that your insulin level, in order to keep your glucose normal, is sky high because you're eating too many carbohydrates. And so you literally, if your doctor knew to check a C-peptide and to check a fasting insulin, they could actually diagnose your prediabetes or your hyperinsulinemia up to a decade early and say, you, my friend, are about to develop type 2 diabetes. I can tell because your C-peptide is so high. Even though your blood sugar is still normal, we've got to change your diet before you become a pre-diabetic or a type 2 diabetic.
So much of the focus on aging these days is to control a protein in the cells called mTOR.
Yes.
And that has led many to say, oh, well, dietary protein increases mTOR, so that if you want to keep mTOR down and age really well, then eat less protein. And the actual human evidence throws cold water on that idea, because we see that the people, as they age, that eat the least amount of protein have the higher mortality. So that doesn't hold up. But even still, that idea of you want to keep mTOR less activated and then you're going to age well, then all the more reason to control insulin, because insulin stimulates mTOR far more than amino acids do from the dietary protein. So aging is related to insulin potentially. Cancers, we know that breast and prostate cancers are incredibly responsive to insulin. Indeed, if you pull a biopsy of a normal breast tissue and compare it to a biopsy from a breast tumor, the breast tumor has 7 times more insulin receptors in it than the normal breast tissue. That means it is 7 times more responsive to that insulin. And what does insulin do? It tells cells to grow. You don't want a cancer cell to be told to grow. And of course, it's stimulating that growth. And then I'll just mention another one just because it might be unexpected. Even fertility, polycystic ovarian syndrome, something I know you're familiar with in your practice because it's so common, indeed the most common form of infertility in women. It at its core is a disease of too much insulin, where the insulin is inhibiting the conversion of sex hormones in the ovaries. So this woman's ovaries end up overproducing androgens like testosterone that should have been converted into estrogens. That's just a basic truth of physiology, that all estrogens were once androgens. So they come from testosterone. That's how it's supposed to be. But that conversion isn't happening. So her ovaries are pumping out a lot of testosterone when they should be pumping out a lot of the estrogen.
Excess insulin, not checked on basic lab work. It stimulates aging, breast and prostate cancers, PCOS. Dr. Ben Bikman on the Dr. Kinberry live stream. Your doctor, even if you're overweight or pre-diabetic, will call for basic lab work. He or she might say, your glucose is normal. So the doctor stops looking. The problem, says Dr. Kinberry, to keep your glucose normal, your insulin is sky high. If your doctor had checked a C-peptide and fasting insulin, he or she would diagnose your prediabetes or hyperinsulinemia up to a decade earlier and be able to tell you, you are about to develop type 2 diabetes because your C-peptide is so high. Let's change your diet before you get type 2 diabetes. Dr. Ben Bikman. Today, to control aging, there is so much focus on mTOR control. So they say, keep mTOR under control by eating less protein. But the evidence shows people who eat less protein have the highest mortality rate. If you want to control mTOR, then keep insulin low, because insulin stimulates mTOR far more than amino acids from dietary protein. He continues, breast and prostate cancers are incredibly responsive to insulin. You look at a biopsy of breast tissue and compare normal to tumor. The breast tumor has 7 times more insulin receptors, meaning the insulin stimulates the tumor cells to grow 7 times faster than normal. Dr. Bikman concludes, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, the most common form of infertility in women, at its core is a disease of too much insulin. Insulin is inhibiting the conversion of sex hormones in the ovaries. The woman overproduces androgens like testosterone that should have been converted into estrogens. He says, ovaries are pumping out testosterone instead of estrogens.
Annotated and summarized, easy to share with loved ones. The description below the title for this video has these summary points.